This September 8th regular meeting of the Fairfax County School Board will now come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence in the performance of the national anthem by the Summer Institute for the Arts and Chantilly High School Combined Orchestra under the direction of Aaron Mines, Orchestra Director, Chantilly High School. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this first week back to school. That was excellent. Good evening, everyone. As you can see, we have a slightly different configuration tonight. We have had some improvements, and I want to particularly thank Jeff Plattenberg and his team for the excellent job that they did over the summer, bringing us these improvements. Thank you very much, Jeff.
If I might add, Madam Chairman.
Absolutely.
The dais before that we had, the laminate was over 30 years old, and we were not ADA compliant, so we were required to make some changes, so it gave us an opportunity to update 30 years of material. I know many of you had garments that were ripped or worn or messed up from the laminate. So anyway, it looks very nice. I'm really appreciative. Jeff and his team, I think, did a fantastic job, so we appreciate their work.
Yes, and we have more ADA compliant seating over in this area. Is that correct? It used to be in the back, but now we have more in this area. And as you can see, we have also some lights for the school board members to let me know that they want to speak. That's an improvement as well. So thank you again. We go to item 1.02, announcements. A few announcements before we begin tonight's meeting. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that's being discussed tonight, that information is on the table by the auditorium entrance. You may access tonight's agenda and related meeting documents by going to the FCPS website, select school board, and then upcoming meetings and agendas. The meeting is also being streamed live at fcps.edu/TV. Please turn off or silence your cell phone. I call on Ms. Chu for announcements.
Thank you. First of all, I hope all the students had a very enjoyable and safe back to school for the first 3 days. This month is National Hispanic Heritage Month. America's cultural diversity has always been a great strength of our nation. The Hispanic American community has a long and important history of commitment to our nation's core values, and the contributions of this community have helped make our country great. During National Hispanic Heritage Month, we celebrate the many achievements of Hispanic Americans and recognize their contributions to our country. This year's theme is Honoring Our Heritage, Building Our Future. In 1968, the Congress authorized President Lyndon Johnson to proclaim National Hispanic Heritage Week, and this observance was expanded in 1988 to a month-long celebration to honor our nation's Hispanic heritage. During this month, America celebrates the traditions, ancestry, and unique experiences of those who trace their roots to Spain, Mexico, the countries of Central and South America, and the Caribbean. Throughout our history, Hispanic Americans have enriched the American way of life, and we recognize the millions of Hispanic Americans whose love of family, hard work, and the community have helped unite us as people and sustain us as a nation. In addition, on September 17th is U.S. Constitution Day and Citizenship Day. Constitution Day and Citizenship Day are observed each year on September 17th to commemorate the signing of the Constitution on September 17th, 1787, and recognize all who, by coming of age or by naturalization, have become citizens. Recent legislation has renamed the day as Constitution Day and Citizenship Day and urges proper observance of the day. This year, the official observance day is Saturday, September 17th, and is the 228th anniversary of the nation's founding document. In observance of Constitution Day and Citizenship Day, all schools in FCPS will be observing this day with activities that recognize the adoption of the U.S. Constitution and those who have become citizens under the Constitution. Schools will use a variety of curriculum resources to teach students about the importance of the Constitution and responsible citizenship. Throughout the school year, high school students will have an opportunity to participate in service learning projects related to responsible citizenship, which can lead to a civic seal on their diploma. And finally, this is also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. September has been designated as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month to increase awareness for the types of cancer that strike children, focusing on issues affecting survivors and raising funds for research and family support. In the United States, pediatric cancer strikes nearly 16,000 children under the age of 21 every year. Of those FCPS students being treated for childhood cancer, many participate in homebound instruction while they are undergoing treatment or recuperating. Research has helped improve treatments that have decreased mortality rates for many types of childhood cancer by more than 50% during the past 30 years. FCPS physical education teacher Jay Coakley, a 33-year veteran FCPS employee, was so inspired by one of his students with leukemia that he founded Ellie's Hats, a nonprofit organization that provides warm and colorful hats to children undergoing cancer treatment. It strives to raise awareness of childhood cancer and provide support to children and their families. So the board encourages the community to support children and their families who are battling cancer and to remember those whose lives were cut short by pediatric cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Next item is item 2.01, citizen participation. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 3 minutes. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as capital improvement program, budget, and boundaries. Complaints regarding individual students or school-based employees should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. Speakers should refrain from using personally identifiable information in connection with an individual student. Speakers are expected to deliver their comments with the decorum and respect appropriate to the conduct of the public's business. Thank you for your cooperation, and thanks to those who have come to speak with us tonight. Tonight we have 10 citizens who have signed up to address the board. As you can see, we have a slightly different configuration here. Now we ask you to step to the podium in the middle of the room. And the first speaker tonight is Christopher Jiang. And following Christopher is John Weston, and then Meg Kilgannon. Christopher, welcome.
Hi. My name is Christopher Jiang, and I am a 9th grader at Marshall High School. I would like to provide input to update the strategic plan so it may better create a caring culture as outlined in today's agenda. Let me tell you a story that just shows how unreasonable the updates to Policy 1450 are. Jeb Stuart High School was named in 1959, and recently, school board members have been questioning if it was offensive or not. And they created a problem where none existed before. In the debate over this non-existent problem, a school board member even stated that if one student was uncomfortable with the name, then the school name should be changed. Well, what would happen if we applied that logic to common school rules that my fellow students and I abide by? If someone doesn't like the dress code, should we all go to school wearing nothing but our bare skin? If someone doesn't want to take a math test in class, should everyone in that class skip the math test? Many flaws exist to this logic, and I do not support changing anything based on this line of thinking. Another action by the school board disturbs me. The school board has made a grave error with policy 1450. The American government runs on the Constitution, whose first line states, "We the people of the United States." This means that the government and subsequently school board should listen to the parents and the students before making any decisions. Fairfax County School Board did not listen to parents and use this with policy 1450 and is acting quite authoritative about it. And this makes me very uncomfortable and troubled. Why did the school board need to rush? There is an exceptional example of the school making a great policy, which is the changing the high school opening times. FCPS spent 10 years trying to change this policy and only succeeded after gaining enough evidence that the high schoolers are suffering from a lack of sleep. Even though I lost an hour of precious sleep every day in 8th grade because of this policy, I still felt comfortable with it because I knew the county had enough concrete evidence to back it up. This is not the case with gender identity. It only took a short period of time for this change to take place. And no phone calls happened and no emails either. Gender identity is currently like uncharted territory, and we should analyze it very carefully and make sure that we do not rush with anything at all. Please do not pass this policy until you have gained enough concrete evidence by questioning the parents and the students. If FCPS doesn't change this policy immediately, who knows how many students, like me, will remain troubled and confused. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Weston, to be followed by Meg Kilgannon, to be followed by Mike Nye.
I am John Weston Kochka. On May 7th, 2015, Fairfax County School Board voted to adopt policy 1450. Ms. McLaughlin, and I'm quoting, "You made the statement about transgender student bathrooms and locker rooms. This is what you said. It's not about any change in practice. I have heard how we handle it. The misinformation about the fear that this will change bathroom practices in locker rooms and the safety of our children is simply not true." Mr. McElveen, after we pass this policy tonight, nothing will change in how we handle cases of transgender and gender nonconforming students and employees. Mr. Moon, as Mr. McElveen pointed out, we will not be changing what we've always been doing. The school administration will meet with anyone claiming to be a transgender and ascertain whether such claim is supported by legitimate evidence, medical, legal, and otherwise. Fairfax County Public Schools adopted the following regulations on July 1st, 2016, and this is in reference to restroom and locker room accessibility. Gender nonconforming and transgender students shall be provided with the option of using a locker room or restroom consistent with the student's gender identity. In no case shall a gender nonconforming or transgender student be required to use a locker room or restroom that conflicts with the student's gender identity or be limited to using only a private area or single-use facility as described in this section. These regulations, written by Jeff Poyer, directly contradicted the remarks by Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. McElveen, and Mr. Moon. These three school board members and 7 others willfully misled the public. Did Jeff Poyer respond to a written request for proposal before he consulted? Was there a formal bid process on this consultant work? How many bidders responded to the request for proposal to consult what the bathroom regulations would be? Was Jeff Poyer's selection voted on by the full board? And did Jeff Poyer ever have a written contract? How many parents did Mr. Poyer consult in drafting these regulations? And please give me all the dates that he met with Fairfax County parents. It is time to repeal policy 1450 and codify the common sense policy that existed before May of 2015. all students should use a bathroom or restroom corresponding to their birth gender or a single-use facility. Thank you.
So I do need to note that we have not voted on any regulation on the transgender issue. I also need to remind people gently that when you sign up to speak on a topic, that it should be that topic that you speak on. Are you Ms. Kilgannon?
I am, thank you.
All right, and you'll be followed by Mr. Nye, to be followed by Mr. Wang.
Good evening. Fairfax County Public Schools released a major family life education curriculum change August 1st, and since then I've been reading it. And it's a wonder that at the very first school board meeting of the year, family life education is not, sadly, on this agenda. But I'm going to link my remarks to the caring community portion of the agenda item, because I feel that this FLE program is not going to contribute to the caring community here in Fairfax. I have significant concerns about the FLE curriculum. First and most importantly, there's an inexcusable lack of love in this curriculum. There are no lessons on love as a sacrifice for another, no lessons on love as a commitment to another. Love is honest and love is selfless. If there's anything we all need more of in this world, it is love. Another troubling aspect of this curriculum is the requirement for students to work in pairs or groups in kindergarten through 12th grade. By throwing such an intimate and vulnerable topic open to group discussion, a natural barrier is weakened and a sort of community standard evolves. And the last thing most parents want is their children making decisions about sex based on some sort of confused notion of what everybody else is doing. But maybe the most astounding revelation to me in reading the entire curriculum is the pervasive misogyny in the lessons. From the 4th grade on, male sexual and reproductive function is given more time and attention to detail than women's reproductive function. The 4th grade video on puberty for boys is 16 minutes long. The 4th grade video for girls is 10 minutes long. This anti-woman bias doesn't stop in 4th grade. Over and over and over again, year after year, grade after grade, it's sperm, semen, epididymis, testosterone. And by the way, girls, you have a uterus and ovaries. You have a period. Good luck with that. This curriculum sends the message that men's bodies are more complicated than women's bodies and that their sexual function is more important than women's. And you've planted this idea starting at the age of 10. In a woman-dominated profession like education, I find it shocking and sad that our girls are demeaned in such a way and at such a young age. Maybe the girls lost out on this more because of the more new inclusive FLE curriculum aspects. Because I guess it's true that you cannot teach women how their bodies work and then at the same time teach children that anyone who identifies as a woman and wears a dress and takes hormones is therefore going to be a woman. It's the ultimate misogyny masquerading as a human right in our society today. And now you're teaching it to every child in Fairfax County. So the only charitable assessment I can make is that it's a missed opportunity. The program could teach children about the full scientific truths of their bodies. It could tell children about the love that is so powerful and prolific it can generate another person. But what you have here is a sad collection of condoms, STDs, and meaningless phrases like sex assigned at birth and a bunch of lies about the dignity of the human person.
Could you conclude?
I am disappointed. I expected so much more, so much better from a group of public servants who've spent their life's work to educate children. This FLE version is not going to beget the kind of caring community we all deserve. Thank you.
Mike Nye, to be followed by Lee Wang, to be followed by Laura Miller, who I believe is going to yield her time to a different speaker. Mr. Nye, have I pronounced your name correctly?
Knee. Think of left knee, right knee.
Okay.
Respected school board members, my name is Mike Nee. I'm the father of 2 students, both from county school system. Today I'm reading a letter from the American College of Pediatricians addressed to our board members in June 2016. The letter represents 20,000 physicians, educators, scientists, and pediatricians. The letter expressed strong disapproval of the school board's gender proposal. It had three main points. First of all, the claim that gender identity is equivalent to sex, as codified by Section 9, has no basis in science, on page 3 of the letter. Human sexuality is object of biological binary trait, XX, XY, representing male, female. So the children who identify, I feel I like the opposite sex, does not hold scientifically. So they are remaining as biological boys and biological girls. The second point, gender ideology has no basis in science and harms all children because our children are youth, are young, are unguided sometimes, and also they are vulnerable. Study shows that actively affirming the gender variant, students harms themselves because it impairs their path to be a healthy child aligned with their gender identity, and also it pushes them down to the dangerous path of the medical transition. Research shows that medical transition of pubertal children resulting sterility and the lifetime use of toxic hormones and confuse them, cause mental and physical risks. The last point is to eliminate sex-segregated private spaces in public school violates all students' fundamental rights for privacy, security, and safety. Many of you have read about the recent Fox News about the federal court lawsuit against Minnesota high school system. The children, the girls, are exposed to a transgender person twerking and grinding in the girls' locker room. I can see the fears in the girls' face. I can see the tears in their eyes. And I can hear the silent sobbing of these innocent girls. But this incident or this legal ramification could happen in our county as well. So in conclusion, I strongly recommend our school board to reconsider seriously the dire consequence of this unproven and imprudent policy. I urge our county to develop in our strategic plan to cultivate a great culture, caring, loving, and nurturing to help our children because they are our future of our country. Thank you so much.
Lee Wang.
Hi, respected board members. I'm standing up tonight here. I'm not kind of person who likes to stand up in front of the public, and you are probably already bored by this topic. But tonight, I'm still standing up here because I have heard so many children express their fear, and because they have the peer pressure, they do not want to stand up to express. I'm a mother of 3 children in Fairfax County Public Schools, 2 daughters and 1 son. This evening, I'd like to share some thoughts on the regulations regarding Policy 1450, and this is aligned with the caring culture goal, which is to foster a responsive, caring, and inclusive culture where all feel valued, supported, and hopeful. In my opinion, the regulation today, as it is written, does not protect the safety, privacy, and dignity of every child in Fairfax County Public Schools. While I totally support zero tolerance of any bullying or harassment toward the transgender and gender nonconforming students, I firmly believe in certain areas in the education system, gender identity is not interchangeable with biological sex. Locker room and bathroom access is one of these areas. Our diverse student population has cultural modesty requirements and religious mandates, which forbid mixed anatomical sexes together in these areas. The current school facilities do not provide adequate privacy to the students. If a transgender student is placed in these areas with opposite-sex students, it will force students by religion or national origin to be limited to use only a private area or single-use facility. This would subject these students to the same discrimination that the school board forbids to be done to gender nonconforming or transgender students. One could also say it discriminates against all students who identify as their God-given biological sex, because it does not give them the same privileges it gives to the transgender students. My children specifically expressed deep concerns and fears, and I don't think it's fair for them. Athletics is another area of such area for obvious reasons, but due to the time limit, I'm not going to go deep in that area. The core of the American dream that I held as a young woman when I came to this country 18 years ago is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, a country that trusts in God. I'm presenting the promises you also heard from Mr. Weston. There are promises from the board members before. I wanted to stress here again, please reconsider for this policy and the implementation. Please do not let your words go in vain. Thank you for listening to me.
So Laura Miller is yielding her time to another speaker, I believe, and
I'm Laura Miller.
okay, I understand you're injured, so you don't have to stand up if you don't want to.
I can lean on the podium. I think I can do that.
Oh, so you're going to, okay.
I think I was actually going to hand it over to Mike Nee, but he's gone, so I'm going to go.
Oh, he's already, okay,
So
all right, go right ahead then.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I want to address the topic of strategic outlook. That was one of the things, your strategies for the year. Well, it's my opinion that Fairfax County Public Schools, being a parent as well as a graduate of Annandale High School, that we had the opportunity to be the forefront that we want to be and continue to be the forefront by confronting when rules are being broken. We know through our education that we are a constitutional republic. So you had the opportunity when both President Obama and a Virginia AG went right around the Constitution and said you need to go through Congresses to make amendments to our constitutions and to make laws. They didn't do it. And you had the chance to say, hey, we are educated here. We know that was wrong. We're not going to move forward as you suggested or bribed us to do just about. No, but you could have had that opportunity. As well, you could have taught your students that regulations are to be followed, just like your own policy of citizen participation. But you decided not to do that. Instead, in 2 weeks, whammo, you went from a policy that was illegally proceeded through a constitutional amendment that didn't exist to being a new policy. And then disclosed and hidden for a year, and then revealed all these regulations, language in your SR&R, language in your FLE, language in youth surveys that are being used. All that needs to be taken back. You have a chance to do that still. Take that all back up till about March 2015. Start over. Let's talk to everybody, because you can also be the forefront of science. I think we're still looking at sexual revolutionary ideas of 1970, where everything is free-for-all and there are no consequences. Well, that's not true. We even now have science revealing that there are consequences to actions. The latest science is saying that there are different ways to help the gender confused. And I think we should apply that, not shut the door on them. I'm more optimistic, so are they, about different methods such as mental health. They need some help, not to be told that under the bus you go. The old science is saying, well, if we just ignore society and we say it's normal and to go forward, that they'll be okay. Everything will be fine. But science is saying that's not true. They're still having 40% suicide rates. They're still having tons of medical consequences. And I'm very concerned about children. You're guessing that if we say they're normal, that will help them. And then to give them maybe hormones and transitions, do we really want to close the door on other opinions? No, we're Fairfax County. We listen to wisdom, we listen to new evidence, and we move forward. I would never listen to just one doctor for my kids. I have 3 in Fairfax County Public Schools, and I have a little boy. He has 2 older girls. I would never say there's only one doctor that knows everything. You need to listen to the new evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Arthur, to be followed by Fred Costello, to be followed by Paul McClemens.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak, everyone. I'm here to talk about the strategic vision. And in the strategic vision for FCPS, one of the important goals is to create a caring environment for all students. One of the strategies in this strategic plan is to support the needs of a diverse student population. FCPS has one of the most diverse student populations anywhere. Caring for all students when there's such a large diversity is difficult. In regards to the gender identity regulation, I commend the board for taking it off the table and giving it some time to consider some of the issues with that until it can be worked out, and as the strategic plan calls for, providing opportunity for community input. This is new territory, and it's one that needs to be carefully worked out for all the diversity of all the kids in our schools. In this diversity, nearly half of the students come from families with religious backgrounds. And many of those religious backgrounds have modesty requirements. So there's a very large percentage of the student population where modesty is very, very important to them personally. And if we're going to maintain a caring culture, we need to show respect and care for that portion of the student population. Virginia's Social Services Code has child care mandates for bodily privacy from the opposite sex in dressing areas and bathrooms. It's not given as an option in Social Services Code. It's a mandate that these children in foster homes, day homes, and juvenile detention facilities have private areas for dressing and using the bathroom from the opposite sex. Schools are not mentioned, but there's enough areas of the Social Services Code where the intent of the law is that every child should be mandated privacy in these areas. Fostering a caring environment where everyone feels cared for means respecting all parts of our diversity, including our LGBT kids. They should be cared for, loved, and shown that we do care about them. But also those with modesty requirements, we need to care for them too. Implementing rules and policies which would violate a large part of our student population, which would create a huge divide between our students. And it would rip apart a caring culture between them with that divide. In the April 2016 Ignite FCPS strategic plan update to the school board, it says that 84% of middle school students report feeling that they feel treated fairly and regardless of their race or ethnicity. As we go forward, we need to ensure any new policies, regulations put forward doesn't create a sense of not being feeling like they're being cared for. No, we need to care for everybody, and that includes both the LGBT kids and those who are religious or have cultural modesty requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Fred Costello. To be followed by Paul McClemens and Kevin Hickerson. Mr. Costello. All right, we'll go to Paul McClemens then.
Dr. Garza, Chairman Evans, Student Representative Ms. Chu, and esteemed school board members. I am Paul McClemens, President of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. I represent FCPS educators who chose this school system because they love what they do and they love the school system that we work in. I am here tonight to address one of the issues that impacts the FCPS strategic plan. One of the 4 Ignite goals is a premier workforce. Dr. Garza and FCPS has shown last year that they care about its teachers by sticking to its promise to pay our teachers more money and bring those teacher scales up to a level that is more competitive with the other surrounding school districts. However, if FCPS wants to remain at the top level in our area, we must invest in quality substitute teachers. The FCPS school board voted on cutting the pay of our retired school teachers who loved their career and decided to continue to offer those services after their retirement. FCPS is in danger of losing its most qualified substitute teachers to other surrounding school districts because of the lack of money in the budget. The same substitute teachers who helped create a premier workforce. These retired teachers come back into our schools to take long-term teaching positions for teachers who are on a leave of absence, sick, at a doctor's appointment, or whatever other reason they are needed. I respect the vote that took place at the last school board meeting to raise the pay to retired FCPS teachers, but that is just a few pennies for what they are asked to do once they enter the classroom. For those teachers, their day doesn't end when the student goes home. They often come to school early to talk to parents or other staff members, get the classroom ready for the rest of the day, make copies, answer emails. The same applies to after schools where they grade papers, make more copies, answer more emails and phone calls, plan out lessons, attend meetings, and all the other duties required by a long-term substitute. A retired physics teacher reached out to the school board members and myself. His name is Tom. I'm going to share Tom's story tonight. Tom wrote, as an example of some of the advantages of using a retired sub for a long-term position, I'll tell you about my last long-term sub job. For the last couple of years, I normally sub 2 or 3 days a week within 10 miles of my house. This past November, a Centerville High School physics teacher contacted me about being a long-term sub for him while his son was having open heart surgery. One of his fellow teachers had given him my name. Although it was outside of my normal area, I accepted the job. The science AP and the science department chair were delighted that I could take the job. I took over 2 active physics classes and 3 regular physics classes. He was using the county's curriculum for the active physics. I know that curriculum very well since I was on the county's committee that came up with it. I've also taught many regular physics classes and still have a lot of my own materials. He wanted me to do a unit on waves. He set me up with the first couple of classes, and I did the rest using a combination of materials and my own. The teacher and the AP were pleased with the results. There were a few regular subs with the background experience and to successfully use the automated systems effectively for a long-term assignment. Retired teachers have significantly more classroom experience and FCPS savvy than any typical sub. Sadly, he took a part-time job elsewhere and limits the jobs he takes. So they are great assets to our community, and we need to support them for the premier quality education they provide to make sure all students become a successful portrait of a graduate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hickerson?
Good evening, Superintendent Garza, Chairwoman Evans, and Fairfax County School Board members. My name is Kevin Hickerson, and I'm the president of the Fairfax Education Association. And I'm here to speak tonight about the FCPS strategic plan, specifically focusing on our lactation support programming policy and funding FCPS and how it affects our premier workforce. The lactation support programming policy has the FEA's full backing. At the state level, the Virginia Education Association helped lobby to pass the law that affected the entire Commonwealth that ensured the language in the Affordable Care Act was being followed. FEA past President Kimberly Adams, you will not forget her because she's a very important person, was one of the staunchest advocates for it and lobbied tirelessly for its passage. Our employees are diligent workers who go the extra mile time after time to make sure that our students have the best education possible. They sometimes feel guilty about taking bathroom breaks, let alone taking the time out to express milk for their child. We are glad that FCPS is furthering its commitment to ensuring our employees can adequately take this on. The FEA stands ready to help out in any way possible to provide ideas and support to create this policy. We need to also examine the other policies and regulations that affect the health and well-being of our employees. The FEA looks forward to having conversations with each of you here to discuss how we can help maintain a premier workforce. In the last budget, the FEA stood beside FCPS and worked with you to bring more funding for this school year. The FEA is proud of our collaborative efforts with the FCPS and looks forward to working with you again. The public should know that even though we had a victory in securing more funding to maintain and upgrade our workforce, we are still behind other counties in this area in terms of average salary. This could be one of the reasons that there are over 200 instructional vacancies in FCPS, mostly in special education at the elementary level. The vacancies have the potential to create stress in the classroom with bigger class sizes, less one-on-one attention from our teachers, and reduced positive outcomes for our students. Because of this, the Fairfax Education Association and the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers are committed to passing the ballot initiative for the meals tax that will deliver 70% of the revenue to Fairfax County Public Schools. We will work with our fellow brothers and sisters throughout the county to make sure that it successfully passes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that concludes our citizen participation for the night. We move to item 2.02, student representative matters. I call on Ms. Chu.
Thank you. Amongst all this talk, I'd just like to point out some very quick notes, especially on the issue of the rights of our LGBT student community, those transgender students, and other sexual identity concerns. There have been a lot of issues about the science of gender identity, but I think it's important that as FCPS is at the forefront of 21st century change, Often, social change also must be considered with how science is evolving. Nowadays, I see a lot of different gay straight alliance clubs or LGBT support teams coming up in high schools and even at the middle school levels. And I just like to note, I think it's important to recognize that when students are creating these clubs, they're calling for a social change and a gradual change in culture within their schools. So I do hope that I can hear more opinions from students on this, but I just like to note the importance of seeing the initiatives students are taking to bring about social change. In addition, I'd like to recognize any Boy Scouts in the audience. I apologize I didn't do this earlier, but if there are any Boy Scouts in the audience completing their citizenship in the community merit? No? Okay, I apologize for that. Also, on a lighter note, I will be visiting some schools coming up soon. I'm very excited to meet some new principals, a lot of great student leadership teams, and I hope that everybody has a wonderful and safe school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. We now move to our action items. 3.01, Governance Committee recommendations for the Family and Early Childhood Education Program, FCPS, Head Start Policy Committee. I call on Ms. McLaughlin for the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I move that the school board change the Family and Early Childhood Education Program, FCPS, Head Start Policy Committee from a board advisory committee to a superintendent's advisory committee.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McElveen. Ms. McLaughlin, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, this is basically a recommendation that the governance committee, of which I served along with Mr. Moon, Mr. McElveen, and Mr. Wilson, and we then brought it to the full board with a recommendation that as we look to streamline the work of both the school board as well as the work of the superintendent, that this would align very well with the advisory committee working directly with the superintendent. And so I believe in listening to my colleagues during the work session. There was majority support to make this change, and so I look forward to tonight my colleagues supporting this.
Mr. McElveen, would you like to speak to your second?
I would just second all that Ms. McLaughlin said. I believe this is a way to streamline our work and better liaise with the community and have staff liaise with this committee directly. Thank you.
I see no more either hands or lights for Ms. McLaughlin.
Well, if no one else wants to speak to it, I do want to, first of all, emphasize, because I think of my two colleagues, Ms. Dernack-Kofax and Ms. Hines, who have been wonderful advocates for the value of early childhood education and Head Start. And so I do want to make sure for the public who's watching this evening that streamlining our work and making it more effective in aligning with the superintendent's operational oversight does not in any way speak to the board's commitment and passion for increasing and enhancing early childhood education. So I did want to just make sure everyone knew that the board believes this is one of the most important things that we can continue to expand and grow in Fairfax County Schools.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further hands or lights, I will call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. That is Hines, Palchuk, Hoff, Schultz, Corbett Sanders, Strauss, Evans, McLaughlin, Wilson, Dernack-Kofax, and McElveen. All those opposed? Moon, and the motion passes. We go to item 3.02, sponsorship policy. I call on Ms. McLaughlin for the motion.
I move that the school board approve the policy on commercial, promotional, and corporate sponsorships.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Moon. Ms. McLaughlin, would you like to speak?
As with the prior motion and serving on the governance committee, this was another matter that the board took, not just the committee, but then the board at a work session discussed how best we can outline
how the school system will handle corporate sponsorships and how the revenue would then be handled with the sponsorships. And I believe that this policy, what's most important is that both the school system as well as Fairfax County as a whole needs to have this type of policy in place. And so I'm proud of the fact that our board is going to have something that very clearly outlines that. And I look forward to the county government also outlining this in a more clear fashion.
Mr. Moon?
I know that earlier today, one of my colleagues left a message on my cell phone. I was busy all day long doing my day job, so I was not able to call her back. On the question of a allocation of the potential donation to be coming to schools, that when I was serving on the governance committee, that our governance committee really wrestled with that issue. But since we have never done this, and there are too many school districts around the country that have this type of policy, we were really not able to find the perfect solution for us until we actually have to go through actually implementing this policy and how that goes. And we may in the future may need to make adjustments. But until we actually implement this and how the business communities and other individual donors, react to our effort, seeking more help from outside, we won't know what the ideal allocation of the donation should be. So that is a response that I should have given to my colleague who left this message on my cell phone.
And I have several people wanting to speak. Mrs. Huff.
Thank you. I was that board member. So I'll give a little background and clarification. And I want to apologize to my fellow board members. This came about at a work session, and I did have some questions about it. And it became new business right before we went on recess. And then this week I was catching up on work, and I thought, wow, I still have some questions. And so I do want to have a discussion, hopefully tonight, possibly about postponing for just for 2 weeks to maybe get some more answers. And I appreciate what Mr. Moon's saying, and to give those listening a little bit more background. In this policy, there's a stipulation that if a sponsor gives over $10,000, that 35% of it would stay local to the school, 65% of it would go centrally. I've heard different reasons for that allocation. But at the end of the day, when I've talked to all the people on governance, there was some, well, not most everyone, I think, but it was sort of arbitrary when they came to that final 35-65. They threw a lot of different numbers around, and as Mr. Moon said, not a lot of people have done this, and there's not a known perfect percent. But I guess I would appreciate maybe if we as a board asked staff and maybe with the business and community partnerships to go out and maybe seek some current sponsors and say, what motivated you to give to the schools? Is there a percent sensitive point where after a while they're not going to want to sponsor to a specific school or to the county as a whole because of that percent distribution? Maybe we can reach out to the chambers of commerce in Northern Virginia and in Mount Vernon and Lee and see if they have an opinion on it, and then come back and maybe we stay at the 35-65, but I guess I would like some more information from businesses on the outset, and maybe then still we'll have to adjust, but I still would like to pass the policy knowing that I've had some of those questions maybe more objectively answered.
Mrs. Schultz?
So this has been a topic that I've been interested in for several years, so I'm sort of glad that it's come up. It's unfortunate that it took a long time to come up, and now we're sort of, I feel like we're rushing to pass a policy right at the end of our August recess. We really haven't had time to talk about this. And just because 4 board members were able to sort of have this discussion in a committee, I don't feel like the board has had this discussion. I do feel like a 65-35 split is very arbitrary and very capricious. I don't know that it's based on anything in particular. I don't know what would motivate a corporate sponsor that's a large organization or a small business who, for whatever reason, because of locale, has an affinity for a particular school. Maybe they themselves, I think we heard from somebody tonight who said they were a proud graduate of Annandale High School, and if they felt motivated to assist their alma mater or their child's school or their granddaughter's school or the school that's most proximate to their small business, as a majority of businesses are small businesses, not only in the Commonwealth and in our county, but in the country. I don't know that driving business partnership relationships with schools and creating partnership opportunities is aided or assisted in a hasty decision by this board to just say, well, you keep 65, we take 35, or we keep 35, you get 65. It's a very strange concept that is a cookie cutter approach to a policy that I don't think fits at all with the type of businesses that exist in many different forms and have many different possibilities for contributing and supporting our schools. So I feel like we're undercutting ourselves from the outset, right out of the gate. I think that each individual circumstance should be taken up, but if nothing else, we are way premature on making a decision like this tonight without engaging the very community that theoretically this policy is set to do outreach to. So I can't support a 65-35, and I do think we should be postponing this until we have a more robust and meaningful conversation.
Ms. Hines?
Yeah, thank you. I have to say, again, we've all been kind of AWOL for August. Not exactly, we've been working, but we have not been talking to each other. We haven't had meetings really over August. And so I find myself surprised to hear that some school board members think we're rushing this. I was actually going to start my remarks with how I feel like we've waited a long time to be able to vote on this, and that I wanted to thank all the people who took months and months and months to put this policy together, the governance committee and staff. It was, as chair for the last year, I kind of got to watch it as it developed, I suppose, or at least to hear about developments of it. And there was some impatience, I think, in certain members of the community for us to move a little bit faster, because we've had this sort of ad hoc, inconsistent policy until now, where certain schools have, really great partnerships and they get a lot of resources, and other schools not so much. And we don't have equity across the county. So I think it's very important that we have a policy that helps us achieve that. And I think that's the purpose of the 35-65. Now, we may decide that that's not, as Mr. Moon said, we may decide that that detail in the policy is something that we want to evolve and change over time. But that's not the only thing in here. I mean, we've got 3 pages of policy that address a lot of other questions about these sponsorship issues. I mean, we have ethical questions when we accept sponsorships. We have to think about the reputation of the school system every time we do that. And all of that has been well thought out in this policy. So I think we really need to accept and adopt the work that's been done. And for myself, I think 35-65 is a good ballpark estimate of how we balance the ability that some local communities and schools have to draw resources to that school, and the challenge that other schools across the county have, and that they are really not able to draw those kind of resources, and it gives us an opportunity to share and to spread the wealth. So again, I thank those who worked on it, and I will be supporting it.
Mrs. Corbett-Sanders.
Yes, thank you. This is a really important policy that we're working on, and it's a policy that has been discussed both in the in the committee, as well as we had a work session on it. the thing that's important to understand about this policy is that it addresses the issue of both large donations and small donations. And when we're talking about a split, it's really a recognition of that the facilities that could be named under this policy were built by school bonds. They were built by the whole county. They are shared by the whole county. But the strategic location of some of these facilities may be more attractive than other locations for corporate sponsorships and corporate naming. And that is why the committee felt that it was important to go ahead and have a revenue sharing agreement when it came to these large donations of over $10,000. Additionally, it's really important to understand that the policy recognizes the great value and support that our traditional funding partners have with all of our schools. And that means the PTAs, the boosters, and the alumni organizations that support individual schools. And so from that standpoint, I think that the policy does, as Mrs. Hines mentioned, it's quite extensive. It warrants careful attention, but it's also important that we do have a revenue sharing. And because after all, it was revenue sharing when we built these facilities as well. And so I support the policy. I support the exemption in the policy where it says that it does not apply to PTAs, booster organizations, and existing individual school foundations, nor does it apply to sponsorship agreements that are in existence before the adoption of the policy. And where there are some areas where we need to look forward in the future, I would suggest that maybe what we do is we take a look at the revenue sharing piece and put in a time where we revisit it if it passes tonight, or if we go with a slight delay that, my question would be, we have very few situations today where we have named facilities and charged a fee for naming those facilities. Most of our facilities today that we have names for are named after honored professionals that have served our school system or are named after leaders in our community. And so this is a new area for us, and it's frankly in response to request by members of the Board of Supervisors and the business community to be able to address this. So thank you.
Mrs. Strauss.
Thank you. I think most of the policy is fine, but I do have a question with its Roman numeral 2D, and it is the dollar amount stated. For elementary schools, I think this is fine, but I think the reality, if there is ever going to be a dollar amount that actually substantially pays for a large purchase that a high school is trying to make, I think the dollar amount here is too low for that, because I know what some of the high schools, if they are actually going to use this policy, most schools, when they're doing fundraising, they're small dollar amounts, or maybe a couple of thousand. So if we really intend to do any kind of a policy dealing with actual naming rights, I have concern about the dollars that we put in here. I would like to go back and actually talk with the activities directors in our high schools and see what they have to say. Therefore, I'm going to make the following motion. I move to postpone the decision on this policy until the December 1st school board meeting, and in the interim, actually talk to our high school activities directors to find out, is this a reasonable amount? Because we wouldn't want to set up a policy where in the end we found out that we were actually discouraging the one or two partnerships that actually might prove to be fruitful for any high school in the county. So that is my motion to postpone the decision of this until December 1st.
Okay,
to give us an
Mrs.
opportunity.
Strauss, would you read your motion?
Yes, my motion is I move to postpone the consideration of this policy until the school board meeting of December 1st, which would give us an opportunity for further discussion with our high schools and activities directors to get enough, I think, clearer information as to what the dollar amount should be. That is my concern.
Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Huff.
Would you mind if we added to that motion to also?
Hang on. All right, Mrs. Strauss, do you want to discuss your motion?
Well, I'm more concerned about the high school.
Okay.
And this is why, and not to put this off forever, there's a lot of work done with it, and I think the majority of it is just fine. But that is my preference. We'll see what my colleagues have to say.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Strauss, seconded by Mrs. Huff. Mrs. Huff, would you like to speak to your second?
And would it be out of order for me to ask about adding what my initial reason for postponing?
Well, you can ask to amend the amendment.
To just also, in the meantime, just be asking staff to reach out to the chambers of commerce and current sponsors to see if just have more information. What motivates them in sponsorships? Is there something that would deter them?
Would you like to make that in the form of a? Dr. Garza, did you have something you wanted to?
I mean, we will certainly seek out any information that's helpful to the board. So I just want to say that up front. I will tell you, we've not ever had a policy, and we've never really been in a position to sell naming rights. So so there's not really a basis for which we can go back and ask our business community how much and what the split would for the purchase of naming rights or those kinds of sponsorships. But I mean, I think we're happy to ask them in terms of a scenario and ask them maybe what's a reasonable split, get their opinion, but we don't have any basis to build it upon.
Yeah, and I appreciate
just want to make that clear.
And really what's motivating them? Are they alumni that want, if it's not going to their school, what is the motivating factors? Because they do exist. There are sponsorships and businesses are familiar with them, even if they're not for the school, for other things. So I feel like they would have some sense. And again, not that they're going to name the percent, but just to inform our decision some more, and if there were other reasons for postponing it. And I was maybe remiss in reiterating that I support this policy, and I'm very appreciative for the work. I'm excited about the fact that we are getting this in place.
So let me ask Mrs. Strauss if she wants to amend
I think
her amendment.
I could extend the language a little bit so that, but as I say, it is our own high school people that right now will have a little more information, a little wisdom to bring to this.
So I would say to have language to vote on.
Right, that we postpone this decision until December 1st to give us an opportunity to gain more information as to the appropriate dollar amount, and maybe we just leave it at that. But I would recommend that our high school people will be the ones that will have.
All right, so I have several people who want to speak, and I'm going to...
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes, Mr. Moon.
Without anything in writing for us to see, I don't know exactly what the motion says. If it is simply motion to postpone until the December 1st, 2016, that's very clear.
Yes.
I can understand that even without them being written down. But the additional language you're proposing, if that's really part of your motion.
And I think, Madam Clerk, have you got the motion that we could see it in writing? Can you put it up on the screen and we can see if, and you'll note we do have screens in front of us. I know, if we are able to make the, make it a little, okay. Dahlia and Tom. It's not working? Okay. Well, what I have written down is I move to postpone to December 1st to gain more information.
Roman numeral 2D, whether or not the dollar amount.
Well, I do think we probably need to have this in writing if it's going to be anything other than just postponing to a date certain. We need to see it in writing. Should we take a brief recess so we can do this, Madam Clerk? Let's have a 10-minute recess so we can get this in writing. All right, would board members come back to their seats? We're ready to resume. Board members who are in the back room, if you would come join us again, we would appreciate it. All right, Madam Clerk, I believe we have the amendment, simplified language that Mrs. Strauss would like to propose. Mrs. Strauss, would you like to read the new simplified language?
Yes, the simplified language is just, I move to postpone consideration of the policy until the school board meeting of December 1st, 2016.
Mrs. Huff, do you still want to second that motion?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. All right. Mrs. Strauss, if you would like to speak to this.
Yeah, and just, well, first of all, because this came from governance, it would obviously then go back to governance. And my recommendation would give us a little more time to consider particularly the implications of Roman numeral 2D, because that is where I do have questions. So, and then it can come back and we will finally solve this. Give us a little more time to think. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Huff, I'm going to let you speak to you. You don't have anything more?
I completely agree. I think I'm happy with that.
Okay. So on my list, I have Ms. Palchuk and Mr. Wilson and Ms. Daranack Kofax, and then I have a couple of go-backs. I believe I have a couple of go-backs. Ms. Palchuk.
Yes, thank you. Well, my original comments were a little unrelated to this motion. So I'm a little bit torn. I think I want to kind of second what Ms. Hines and Ms. Corbett-Sanders were sharing. I think we're doing the right move in looking at this policy and wanting to pass it. I also think it's important that we move cautiously. We are still a public school system and need to rely most heavily on our public funds. We also are an entire county that is now seeing a lot of division, whether it's socioeconomic or geographic or otherwise. So I don't know yet how I feel about the motion. I think that I want to be clear that we have a policy in place for contributions. This is for sponsorships. So businesses, organizations do currently have the ability to contribute. We are charting new territory, both for our county and across the board for school districts. So while I am open, perhaps the idea of the postponing of this, I know that governance did work pretty diligently on this, and I believe they did gather as much information as they could at the time. I believe it was over the span of a year, approximately. So I think I would need to know that the postponing would ensure that we do have more information and we can gather more information than we currently have, rather than just postponing and adding additional time that will bring us back to the same decision using the same information that we have. So perhaps someone who was on governance at the time can share more information. I would really appreciate that. I do think, as Mr. Moon said, it's important that we take careful steps, knowing that we can always amend this, have new motions. As I mentioned to one of the supervisors who's very anxious to see this, in the book Infinite Jest, they go as far as to sponsor years. So I just want to make sure that what we do is in the best interest of all of our schools and our school system, and that we also do not begin to supplant our county and state and federal funding. So I'd love to hear from maybe one of the governance committee if we feel that there's information out there that they have not already been able to gather.
Thank you. I have two people who have not yet spoken, and then I have some go-backs. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Palchuk, I can assure you, as a member of the Governance Committee, we have lots more energy to spend on this. We're ready to go, despite the time we've spent already. I actually will support the motion to defer this to December. As I was rereading it today, and this is the challenge when it's a new policy for a county, and it's not a very common policy in the United States, that this is our effort to put together a policy that does make a lot of sense and does provide the correct incentives that we want as a county. And I'm just noticing that in the allocation of donations provision, we've drafted it as a cliff, which means that at $10,000, the school gets 100%. They would get $10,000, but at $15,000, they would get 35% of that, and they would only get 5. So I think that we could come up with a little bit better, just mathematical mechanism to protect schools so that, you know, if it's 10,000, they get 10,000, and that they get protected up to a point, and then ultimately at 35%, if that's the allocation we would choose. So I think that there is some more work to be done on this, and I also echo the various comments that soliciting some input from chamber members and others, just to make sure that at least our first cut at it does reflect well on this board and on our policy. Thanks.
Ms. Derenak Kovacs.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I would be inclined to support Ms. Strauss's motion, but I feel like we're kind of just talking around because we don't have specificity on what additional information we want. You talked about looking at the athletic DSAs, yes, and but specific, and then Ms. Huff had some additional information. So I would support this, but I would like, if we're going to do it, I kind of want a general understanding at this table now what specifically information we want to gather and what the process will be. Will be that staff gathering or will it be going back to governance? Okay, so if we can speak to that.
Are you
Well,
asking
I
the
guess I'm
question
asking.
of-
I'm asking Ms. Strauss, the maker of
And
the
I guess
motion.
what I would suggest, Ms. Derenak Kovacs, since this is, if this passes, it would go back to governance. It would seem to me that Mrs. Strauss and Mrs. Huff have mentioned a couple of things that they would like to know, and this would be an opportunity for other board members to ask any questions that they have.
All right, that
about
clarifies
that.
the process for me then, thank
Yes.
you.
I have a couple of go-backs. Mrs. Schultz, are you a go-back? Okay, then it's your turn.
So I just want to go back. Even at this table, it appears we haven't quite gelled around the notion that we've spent a lot of time talking about this. This was predominantly discussed in committee. It wasn't predominantly discussed at the board table with all of us there at a work session in terms of the nuances. And there was great ambiguity about where we were gelling on this issue of the split. So we didn't resolve it. It appears from the work that we're doing at the table now that it isn't resolved. Usually, as some of the other motions that happened earlier this evening where we really didn't discuss it very much, the more we're discussing it and the more convoluted it appears to us at the table, the more likely it is that we haven't come to a consensus. So I do think it does need to be delayed. I am very concerned about the notion of this concept of quote-unquote revenue sharing. And that wouldn't surprise some of my colleagues, but you know, the secret decoder ring is wealth redistribution. And I don't like setting this up from the perspective that if somebody wants to give something to some school, they're not allowed to unless they give, you know, half of it away or more than half of it away. We are undermining the notion that this is a public school system and that people have individual liberties, and that if they want to give something, they should be able to give it. Now, we can also build into it, and I think Mr. Wilson was getting there a little bit, of having some kind of scale or some kind of incentive, because what we'll do by installing numbers directly into policy, and numbers in policy is bad. That's not policy, that's regulation. So us putting dollar figures in a policy is bad policy to start with, in my opinion. But what you could do is not incentivize people to give under $10,000 so they don't have to give any of it away. I mean, we're not writing good policy. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to say, one, yes, let's delay it. Two, let's engage the Chamber of Commerce and some of our other established business partners, and also frequent smaller business partners that aren't necessarily, the large credit unions and the Tyson's Corner alikes, but create something that is incentivizing to say, hey, listen, if you give and you do this, something else will happen. That's good policy, and that's incentivizing, not disincentivizing. And then Ms. Derenak-Kofax, I think you had some really good points around, let's just have that discussion tonight. Look, what do we want? And I don't think it's overly complex, and I certainly do think it could be done by December, but I think to be intellectually honest and say, we're not just going to lop off, X percent in a very large government-esque way and disincentivize people from giving and being collaborative partners with our schools.
I have a go back with Ms. McLaughlin, then Mr. Moon, then Ms. Corbett Sanders.
As the new governance chair, I welcome this opportunity, if the board decides to postpone, that it would come back to governance, and that we would absolutely take the input, not just from tonight, but board members who do want to also ensure that the board considers any other questions related to the draft policy for us to make sure that it's discussed, examined, and brought back to a work session before we would vote in December. But I want to answer to a couple of things that our colleagues have raised. First of all, I believe that Ms. Corbett Sanders really captured it best. What the sponsorship challenge is, some of our schools are located in different parts of the county, or they happen to have football teams that keep heading to states. Centerville, you know who you are. And so, there's going to be corporate sponsors who are going to look and say, that school location or that school's, sports prowess is where, we want to go ahead and do a sponsorship because it's going to have high visibility. And that's fine. But I want every one of my colleagues to really think about this concept. We are one school district. Fairfax County is not 25 different separate school districts for each one of our high school pyramids that you would find throughout the Northeast. That's the model they have, and I am very thankful to live in a county that has one school district, 4 million people, and we make sure then that all of our schools are strong, regardless of where you reside in this county. We know that there are certain jurisdictions where there is tremendous pockets of wealth. When I was a former PTA president at my elementary school, we were lucky if we could raise $20,000 to $25,000 a year. Up in one of my other colleagues' schools, elementary school, in 1 year's time, they raised $300,000 in their wrapping paper sales. And I know because it was in the news, the principals went and did their work for the day up on the roof, because that was the bet if they hit that mark. So imagine when you're an elementary school PTA president and you're looking, wow, what could we do with $300,000? So that's just a reality. And my children's elementary school is middle income, limited poverty, but that's just a reality in this county. And it concerned me then, and it concerns me now. This is not wealth redistribution. And I appreciate one of my colleagues bringing it up, because I think that can then create a misunderstanding about what this is all about. If we believe in one county and in one school district, then that's what this is about. And interestingly, we already have a model similar in this county. We have cell towers throughout the county. And the reason we have cell towers throughout the county in different schools is based on need of the cell tower companies. They said, you know what, we have bad service over here, we want to put a tower on that school. Well, the community has mixed feelings about cell towers. So Fairfax County Schools said to the communities, well, if it goes on your school property, you get 15% of the revenue share and the other 85% comes to central administration. That's pretty much wealth redistribution, isn't it? Because it didn't all stay on the school, even though the school hosts the tower. No, it's not wealth redistribution. We're one school district, and they need to use something. They want to put something on one of our properties, but the property belongs to the school district of Fairfax County. So I do think that this is prudent to postpone. I do think that my colleague, Tom Wilson, brought up an excellent point that after $10,000, where it tips to a 65-35 share, it needs to be on the revenue above the 10,000. So this way, the school's going to get the first 10,000, and then the revenue share after is 65-35 split. Or otherwise, you might have the situation where everybody says, well, don't do 10,000 and $1. So, or don't do 11,000, or don't do 12,000. So I think we can sort out a lot of this through the governance committee. I do agree with many of my colleagues who said, let's check with the chamber for their input. Let's check with our current sponsors, if we have any who've actually provided these types of sponsorships to date. Let's talk to our directors of student activities to see if they've had conversations with potential sponsors. But in the end, I don't believe the driving force for most of these sponsorships is that it needs to be the funding stays 100% within that school. A sponsor just wants to know, is my name recognition going to be in a place that benefits my company? And nothing here says, no, we're going to make your sponsorship over at this school versus that school because that's where we want to direct our money to. So I thank every one of my colleagues tonight for really giving this policy the serious discussion that we've done here. You know, governance, like a lot of our subcommittees, we come to you all, we do our best in work sessions to give you the information, but we are always so pressed in our work sessions that often it's compressed into just a summary discussion. So here we are, but I do think it's very good, and I want to thank Ms. Strauss and Ms. Huff, both of you, for bringing forward this amendment to postpone, and I do fully support it and appreciate that this will come back for governance to work with staff and make sure we capture all of the concerns of our colleagues.
Thank you. Mr. Moon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I stated earlier, Governance Committee spent a lot of time, 4 of us, and eventually came up with a recommendation for the full board's consideration and presented at a work session in July. I think some board members might have missed their work session, had missed an opportunity to us to participate in discussion at that work session. But having said that, I do not mind, postponing until December 1. I do not think this is a matter of urgency, other than there are some members on the County Board of Supervisors who wanted to see this to be adopted by the school board as soon as possible. And we're trying to be responsive to our funding authority. Meanwhile, I know that we have existing policy under which our superintendent is able to handle any donation coming to us. Just without this policy, without a formal policy, there may not be a consistency, but at the same time, I have a trust and confidence in superintendent that she will try to make it as consistent as possible until we formally adopt our policy. What the ideal allocation of donation should be, if it is other than 35 and 65, just let us know, and how any board member or anyone who's suggesting is basing that on. I would love to find that out. I would love to learn how to do it. But let's see whether we can make the decision on December 1. Thank you.
I'll take just a moment to speak. I want to thank the Governance Committee for taking this on, developing a brand-new policy of this significance. I know it took a lot of time and effort, so I want to applaud the Governance Committee for what they've brought to us. I think Ms. McLaughlin said it very well as far as the issue having to do with the split. Again, whether it ends up being 35-65 or some other figure, I do believe, as Ms. McLaughlin said so eloquently, we are one school system. And so I certainly support having that type of a split. At the same time, I'm hearing people with a number of questions that they want answered, and we have the former governance chair and the current governance chair telling us that there's not the urgency to do this tonight, which I agree with that. So I can support the postponement. And I believe that everyone then will have an opportunity to let governance know any questions that they would like to have answered, any information that they feel they need. Of course, individual board members can also seek that information on their own, which I think is certainly a worthwhile task for all of us. So with that, while I support the where the Governance Committee is going with this, I think that a postponement at this point would make some sense, just to give everyone a little bit more comfort with where we're going. So with that, I'm going to read the motion. I move to postpone consideration of this policy until the school board meeting of December 1st, 2016. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not. Ms. Hines? Ms. Palchik, Mrs. Huff, Mrs. Schultz, Mrs. Corbett-Sanders, Mrs. Strauss, Evans, Moon, McLaughlin, Wilson, Derenak Kovacs. Opposed? Mr. McElveen? The motion passes. So we have postponed that action item until December 1st. We now go to Item 4, the consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Items listed here have generally gone through board review, and documentation has been provided to all board members and the public in advance. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the meeting. 4.01, appoint individuals to serve on committees as detailed in the agenda item. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda? Seeing none, hearing and seeing no objection, the consent agenda is approved. We go to Item 5, new business. The following are new business agenda items. There will not be a vote tonight on these items, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. 5.01, adopt the lactation support programming policy as detailed in the agenda item. 5.02, appoint individuals to serve a one-year term on the challenged materials interdepartmental review committee as detailed in the agenda item. 5.03, adopt the changes to the 4 goal areas of the Fairfax County Public Schools strategic plan: student success, caring culture, premier workforce, and resource stewardship. And now we go to superintendent matters. Dr. Garza.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. You'll remember in the 2014-2015 school year, the board supported a very strategic and important investment that enabled us to develop a program called our Systems of Support, our SOSAs, our Systems of Support Advisors. As you all know, we've spent a lot of time talking about the resulting outcomes and the significant improvements we've seen in just responsiveness to our students. And I'm very proud to report to the board that the VDOE recognized FCPS as a Virginia tiered system of supports trailblazer in Richmond in late July. We had a number of our staff there. I know Ms. McLaughlin also attended on behalf. We had other community supporters that were there and strategic partners that were there as well. The recognition was presented at the Classrooms, Not Courtrooms, School Discipline and the Achievement Gap Institute. Dr. Duran was at the ceremony to accept the award, along with some others that I mentioned. And I want to congratulate Dr. Jane Lipp, Dr. Jill Jakalski, and just so many other people throughout our system, our principals, for their support. Certainly this is a source of pride for our school system. So you should feel good about that. It would not have happened without the support that the board provided to our schools to make that happen. We hope in the future to be able to expand that program to some of our middle schools in the future. And certainly I think it's a practice that other school systems across the country can emulate. I understand Dr. Steve Staples was very impressed with the group that was there. And of course, I know that everyone felt very good about the recognition. It was certainly a very prestigious recognition. On to other recognitions. The National Procurement Institute has given our procurement department, who manages all of our contract negotiations, all of our procurement activity. They received the 2016 Annual Achievement of Excellence in Procurement Award. FCPS is one of only 23 agencies in the United States to receive this honor. So congratulations to our financial services, Assistant Superintendent Kristen Michael, our Chief Operating Officer, Susan Quinn, all the wonderful people in our financial services department. This is a distinguished honor, and one I know we're all very proud of, because it signals to our community that we take the responsibility of taking care of our precious taxpayer dollars very carefully. So we're very proud of that. Another recognition, Kelly Lynn Scott, who has taught math at Robinson Secondary School for the past 7 years, is one of 213 teachers nationwide to be recognized with the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Ms. Scott, who is part of the grades 7 through 12 award cohort, is one of only 4 teachers in Virginia to be recognized for this distinguished award. So we congratulate Kelly and certainly her entire school, her principal, Matt Eline. We're just very, very proud of her and congratulate her on receiving this very distinguished award. And then finally, you know, I need to talk about first day of school. I know that all of you are out in school. Some of you even joined me for my school visits. I just could not have been more proud of our entire system. And, you know, if I start naming off people who are responsible for making Tuesday such a wonderful start, I'll miss someone. But you know, it takes enormous effort of every aspect of this organization, from facility services. My goodness, Fort Belvoir Elementary School, what a miraculous accomplishment that was. Our school bus drivers, our food and nutrition services staff, and I could go on and on. I'm going to miss folks. Custodial services, and then our principals and teachers and everyone at central office who supported getting the start open. It certainly was a proud moment for all of us. And it's always an exciting day. That's probably one of the most fun days of the year, right? To see children excited about coming to school with their new school supplies ready to start the year. And I think everyone's excited and enthusiastic. So again, I'm just always amazed at, again, another smooth start. It doesn't happen by happenstance. It happens with lots of planning and preparation on the part of everyone throughout FCPS. So I want to congratulate all of our staff for making it a great day for children. And I also welcome all of our about 188,000 children back to school. And we look forward to working with their families and with us in community to continue this the great work of FCPS. So that concludes my report. And again, I hope everyone has a great 2016-2017 school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. The next agenda is board matters, and I call on Mr. McElveen.
I would just wish everyone a wonderful start to school and a wonderful school year.
Mr. Annette Kovacs.
I, too, am happy to be back to school. I was able to attend several open houses prior to the first day at Hayfield Elementary, Crestwood Elementary, Edison High School, and Garfield Elementary. And at the first school, I didn't realize I was walking into a kindergartner back to school time, and I saw they were just so adorable. They were, like you were talking about, the energy with the backpacks that are bigger than them, and they're crying, and their parents are crying, and it was just a beautiful little sight to see. I was able to be with Dr. Garza at the opening of, and Ms. Corbett Sanders and Mr. McElveen at the opening of the beautiful new Fort Belvoir Elementary Upper. Thank you to our facilities folks who I know worked really hard to complete that and get that ready for the start of school year. It is a lovely facility. And today I was happy to attend with my colleagues, Ms. Corbett Sanders and Ms. Hughes, the Lee Mount Vernon Chamber meeting today to give them a brief overview about what is happening in our schools in our area. So what did I? Oh, Miss Huff.
Miss Hugh is
Miss
fine.
Hughes, you're not Miss Hughes.
Ho,
Miss
how,
Huff.
you know.
See, I can't read my own writing. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to the 2016-2017 school year. This was my first chance to do the back-to-school video. I hope I did okay. As those of you who may have watched it, I think I'm up to 50 hits or something on it. So, but welcome back. Just a birders bit of information here tonight. Outside this building at Luther Jackson is a chimney which is being used by a colony of chimney swifts, and tonight we got to see them as the sun goes down. All 3,000 or 4,000 of them fly in a big stream into the chimney, and if you've never seen something like that, I hadn't until tonight. It is quite incredible to see. So I recommend, if you are a birder, to come by in the evening and watch that incredible display. Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin?
A couple things. First, I want to thank all of our speakers who came out tonight. One of the most important things that we can accomplish as a board is to understand where our community is. And it's also important to sometimes identify when the community might not have clear information. And so I know Ms. Evans tried to make a notation, but it was a little noisy, so I just want to reiterate for anyone who's still watching. One of the speakers, the later speakers, captured it accurately. This board did not put any new regulations in place. The superintendent did not put new regulations in place based on that policy. Yes, there's been some updates to the SR&R. Yes, there's been some changes to FLE, but that's work outside of the policy 1450 that this board spoke to the community about a year ago. There were draft recommendations on how to execute on policy 1450, and this board said in a public meeting that we did understand and remain committed to engaging our public on it. And so I do appreciate that if people hear incorrect information, then they stand here tonight and express their concerns. But for those especially who drew upon my public remarks from a year ago, I stand by them. We updated a non-discrimination policy a year ago. We are still waiting on the court system the national court system to make some determinations on these cases that are at a national level. And we will continue to be engaged with our public on this issue, and I take that very seriously. The other thing that I wanted to just share with my colleagues is not only am I pleased that Dr. Garza mentioned the award that we received as a school system down in Richmond, but there's two things from that. First, the two-day conference took place right before we went into our August recess, so I did want to let my colleagues know that providing you a summary that might have then sat in your inbox for a month and maybe gotten buried didn't seem very prudent, so I will be sending you a summary just of my experience from attending the conference those 2 days. It was a team that represented the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, the Fairfax County leadership, myself, and then also two other individuals who work within the school system and interface with our court system. It was school districts from throughout Virginia who attended this thing. It was a free conference, and in fact, they paid for our meals and our hotel down there. But it was basically the Virginia Department of Education saying, we are very serious about schools or classrooms, not courtrooms, and it's all about diversion. And so it was a great conference. And building on that, Dr. Garza was approached by the director of the juvenile court system, Bob Birmingham, that one of the chief judge of the juvenile court, he presented to the SROs which is, we all know the SROs are actually part of our police system, and then they come and staff in our schools. So the judge, part of their annual training, the judge came and spoke to them about the merits and the importance of diversion, trying to divert cases from the criminal justice system. And so they've now reached out to Dr. Garza that they would like to have a judge come and speak to her leadership team and or the principals about just the information they imparted with the SROs. So again, you have people really kind of in a collaborative mindset. And so I was really pleased that they reached out to Dr. Garza on that. And I was going to follow up with Dr. Garza and Chairman Evans about how we could also have Judge Carr, who was the one who participated with us, perhaps share that 30-minute presentation with the board as well if it's deemed helpful, because I think this is, again, goes to even the broader work on SCIPT, where we're talking about how do we have county agencies all working collaboratively toward the greater good. So I just thought that was really exciting to see, again, this continued building of connections and collaboration going on between county and schools, and I think that's great. And then I just want to say that as the parent of now a junior in high school, the youngest of my children, like many parents, we're getting adjusted again to the school day and all the demands that come with our students being in school and learning. And the message I've been sharing with my community in Braddock District is, I hope we can continue to help our children every day find and discover the joy in learning. It's so important that our students academically achieve, but I want them to, most importantly, continue to find that joy in learning. And so I want to help promote that because I know that's what our teachers want for our children as well. And I also want to give a special shout out to Mr. Plattenberg. I don't know if I see him up there, but he, for any of you who do have children who take the bus and have transportation, I shared with him as a parent how impressed I was, the communication that was done before the start of the school year, with email correspondence, with printed information being provided to each child in their welcome packets, to the calls that were made, the automatic calls, all providing very explicit information about your children's bus routes, pickup times. If you run into any trouble, here's what you should do. Bear in mind that the first couple of weeks in a bus fleet almost the size of Greyhound, it's going to have some kinks. And I just thought it was one of the best things I've seen as a parent in recent years, and really appreciate the work he did. And other than that, I'm probably exceeding my time, so I'll defer from now.
If I might add to that, Matt Guilfoyle in our communications department was also a very strategic partner in that work. I know if Jeff were in the room, he would say the same thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Traditionally, month of August for the school board is recess time to rest, relax, and recuperate. But I've never had so many meetings and community events during the month of August. Maybe for those who are still in their first year as a board member, might not really realize that, but August is supposedly a month of recess. Let's not schedule more meetings in the future during August. And for those of us who celebrate Harvest Moon Festival based upon lunar calendar, Harvest Moon Festival is a week away from today, September 15th, when moon becomes largest, fullest. So I'll become fuller on that day, and let's celebrate my being fullest on that day. Thank you. And I yield the rest of my time to Ms. Hines.
Thank you. Mrs. Strauss.
Thank you. I want to compliment all of my schools, principals, teachers, Dr. Garza, Jeff Plattenberg, Matt Guilfoyle, everybody else who has worked so hard with this very, very smooth opening. two of the things that I always look for, and I was sharing with Dr. Garza, principals in elementary schools where in the first week of school, the children all knew the principal and say, hi by name, high fives, hugs around the knees, very open. We want to see all of our people out in the halls, and I'm seeing that, and I'm very, very pleased and excited. The children are happy, the children are excited, and I've been sitting in, so far, elementary classrooms to listen to the very well-prepared and excited teachers in their back-to-school speeches. I am impressed with their discussion of curriculum, helping communication, technology, Google Docs, all the rest of it. But we've had an excellent opening, and I'm very grateful, and the children are terribly excited to be back in schools, and the teachers are excited to have the children. So we're off to a great start. Good luck to everybody, and hopefully we will have just a very successful school year. Thank you.
Mrs. Corbett-Sanders.
I echo the comments of my colleagues in thanking Mr. Plattenberg and his team, the local principals and their teams, and Dr. Garza and the leadership team in a very smooth opening of this school year. It's quite impressive. Those that don't know, the folks in Mr. Plattenberg's organization were able to break ground and open a school at Fort Belvoir within 1 year. And it is truly a magical place. So my hat's off to them. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Ramey and his staff. We often forget about our human resources folks, but they have done a yeoman's job in satisfying the need to replace teachers that have retired, replace teachers that have sought more competitive salaries elsewhere. And he shared with me a remarkable number when I was asking him about his work this week. And he said that over the summer, Fairfax County had hired 1,891 new teachers. First, welcome. We are glad you're here. We care about you because you care about our kids and are truly professionals, the best and the brightest. So we're glad you're here, but we're also very appreciative of Dr. Ramey and his staff for doing a yeoman's job. I also want to thank our business partners that have worked very closely with the summer programs in Mount Vernon, where we did a number of STEAM camps for our Title I schools, and those include the support from Fort Belvoir and the military, as well as St. Louis and Good Shepherd churches, which supported a STEAM camp at Bucknell. And I wanted to share with people my favorite quote from that camp. When they asked a young man about what he enjoyed the most about participating in STEAM camp and what he learned, he said, "I learned empathy and engineering." Warms my heart, and have a wonderful evening.
Mrs. Schultz.
First of all, my congratulations too to Ms. Scott at Robinson. I'm one of the parents who've been a very, very fortunate parent to have had her as a teacher for one of my children, and that's an honor well-deserved. I want to thank Mr. Plattenberg and the facility staff. You know who you are. And the staff with Supervisor Harity's office for the time they spent on the walkthrough. West Springfield High School is undergoing a renovation, and all I can say to the parents and the students, and certainly the academic faculty and support staff, if you haven't seen a school on as small of a campus that's under renovation like West Springfield, I hate to say, but it looks like a war-torn third world country when I went and saw it last week, and I know it was ready for opening day because I haven't had any complaints. So I know that they have done a Herculean job, and I know it's going to be a long 3 years, but it's also very exciting. It's like, I don't know how long elephants are pregnant, but they're probably pregnant for a very long time. And so I'm waiting, there's a baby that's going to be birthed at West Springfield in 3 years, and it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. So I appreciate everybody's patience, and certainly FCBD who were out there. The chief had just tremendous support staff, so our West Springfield High School was able to return, even though there are 0 student spots. Black market for anybody who lives in the residential parking district next to it. Great earning opportunity, collaboration on the side. I want to thank the Oakton community. I know that's not my district in the Springfield district, but the invitation to come and meet with parents and community members in the Oakton community and talk about very sensitive topics. You were very warm and welcoming me across jurisdictional lines, so I appreciate that. I want to give something that doesn't typically happen, but I haven't ever seen it. Robinson Secondary had students who I assume were volunteers. I called them like ambassadors on the locker day where all the new students were coming in and returning students were coming in to get their lockers. And they walked around and they had little signs, sticks and, little signs at the top that said, do you need any help, ask me. And it was one of the most impressive things I saw of young students taking ownership of their school and escorting, parents who were overwhelmed because Robinson is such a large school and new students. It was such a neat program. So if any other school is looking to do something and evolve, I'm sure they got some kind of volunteer hours. And I didn't say anything to anybody that day, but it's something that stuck with me for now a week about how impressive that was. As we're going into this weekend, I do want to, in a community that's often touched by not only our military personnel, but also for those who have family members and extended family members who are lost on 9/11, that this is, a time to remember and be thankful for where we've come, and for those who lost somebody. I've just found out that one of our retired teachers who was with us for many decades lost her husband actually yesterday morning, and his viewing is going to be on the 11th, and his funeral will be on Monday. But it just brought to mind that we are in an area that was very heavily touched by 9/11. So thank you.
Mrs. Howe?
Just welcome back to school, and I hope everyone has a great year.
Ms. Palachuk?
Yes, a very warm welcome back to school. There are some very wise first through third graders in my neighborhood, and they said to me the other day, at the end of school, we really just want summer. But at the end of summer, oh my gosh, I'm so bored, I want to go back to school. So they were all very excited, came up and told me who their teachers were. And so it brought me back to the days when we were studying heroes in world civilization. And I remember my teacher saying, well, Western hero is someone who does a really good deed once in their life. An Eastern hero is someone who does really good deeds every single day and lives that life. I want to thank the 24,000, is that correct, Mr. Chase, employees in our system. They are everyday heroes. They really do go above and beyond during the school year, during the summer, mornings, nights, evenings. I believe we started the school year with 170 or 171 teacher vacancies, and so we do have a long ways to go to continue to support them. I want to thank Mr. McClemens and Mr. Hickerson for speaking today on behalf of our teachers and staff. I hope we as a board will continue to work together with the supervisors at the state and federal government in our community to continue to support our teachers and make sure they can stay with us and continue to teach our kids. So thank you. On another note, I do want to let people know that we are one of the partners. I know Ms. McLaughlin spoke about some of the work we've been doing, but there's a Communities of Trust Committee event this Saturday. Communities working together, Justice, Unity, and Peace Town Hall at the Centerville Baptist Church from 1 to 3 p.m. So as they say, the key to building communities of trust is establishing positive relationships between law enforcement and the communities they serve. So I do hope that members of our community will be able to join this event. I unfortunately have to work. I will do my best to sneak away, but I hope this is one of many discussions and conversations as we work together as a county. So thank you and have a wonderful, amazing school year.
Ms. Hines.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Moon. Oh, he's not even here. Okay, and I assure you, I also plan to be full on that day, so, right? Didn't he say he would be full on the celebration of the, well, whatever, sorry. So by the time we get done to this part of the table, there's not much left to say, other than welcome back to school. And to the teachers out there, I've been where you are right now for many years. I was a classroom teacher in the school system, so I know how hard you've been working. I know how much sleep you've lost, and I know how committed you are to creating a welcoming and challenging environment for every single child, and to building that family that you will have over the next 9 to 10 months with all of your students. So I miss the energy that you're feeling right now at this time of year, and I wish you all the best.
I will just say for my part that I was very pleased to spend part of the first day of school with Dr. Garza on her tour around various schools throughout the county and visit Holmes Middle School and their wonderful new principal there, Mrs. Barnes. And I want to thank the teachers at Holmes Middle School for letting us come and join them in their classrooms to visit and see all the wonderful things that they were already doing on the first day of school. I've enjoyed the few back-to-school nights that I've already participated in and look forward to more. It's particularly great. I think Ms. Derenak Kovacs mentioned the kindergartners. I saw a whole lot of kindergartners coming in today, and that's wonderful to see. So with that, our meeting is a little bit different tonight. Following our adjournment, we will take a 5-minute break and then meet in room 303 for the forum work session, and after the forum, we will meet in closed session. This meeting is adjourned.